Welcome to Raghav Podcast, where we delve into significant events and issues shaping our world today. I'm your host, Raghu, and in today's episode, we'll be exploring the recent floods in the Teesta River basin. This event has not only affected the landscape, but also profoundly impacted the lives of those who call this region home. To start off, let's get acquainted with the Teesta River, flowing through the Indian states of Sikkim and West Bengal and also through Bangladesh. The Teesta River is a lifeline for millions. It supports agriculture, provides drinking water, and is central to the local ecosystem. Historically, the river has seen its share of floods, often during the monsoon season. However, the recent flood has been one of the most devastating in years, raising questions about its causes and impacts. To understand why the recent flood was so devastating, we need to look at both natural and human-induced factors. Firstly, let's consider the natural causes. The impending threat of climate change. The water balance of the Teesta Basin is going to become a more important factor in an already water-stressed region. In recent years, Sikkim has experienced a number of sudden and devastating glacial lake outburst floods, or GLOFs. Several potentially dangerous small and medium-sized glacial lakes have been identified in the upper catchment of the Sikkim region. These lakes are evidence of increasing glacial melt and retreat in the upper reaches of the basin due to climate change. It is predicted that the Himalayan river catchments will experience more extreme weather events such as cloudbursts and heavy rainfall, increasing the rate of soil erosion, landslides and flash floods. The general pattern of hydrological impact of climate change in the Brahmaputra River basin can be extrapolated to the Teesta to predict a future in which accelerated melting of the glaciers feeding the rivers will lead initially to more frequent and intense flooding, but subsequently, as the glaciers retreat ever further, to decreases and eventually drastic reductions in the Teesta's flow. But natural factors alone don't tell the whole story. Human activities have also played a significant role. Deforestation in the river's catchment area has reduced the land's ability to absorb rainwater, causing more runoff into the river. Additionally, unplanned urbanization and construction along the riverbanks have obstructed natural water flow, exacerbating the flooding. Chapter 3. What was the resulting damage? As per the Hindu, the most visible consequence of the flooding was the destruction of the Chungthang Dam. Though not a storage dam, it directs water to power the Teesta 3 hydropower project. The executive chairman of Sikkim Urja, which runs the project, is quoted as saying the dam was washed away in 10 minutes. Senior officials in the CWC say that the dam is significantly damaged and the quantity of silt and water present made it difficult to estimate the extent of the damage. All bridges downstream to the Teesta V hydropower station were submerged or washed out, disrupting communication. The Power Ministry said in a statement, the floodwater overtopped the dam of the Teesta 5th power station with 510 megawatts. All connecting roads to the project sites as well as parts of the residential colony have been severely damaged. Presently, the power station is shut and not generating any electricity. The Teesta 3 power project is not operated by the NHPC. One NHPC employee at the Teesta 3 power station lost his life. All of the organization's other personnel at the site were safe. Works on the under construction Teesta 6 with 500 megawatts of the NHPC were disrupted with water entering into the powerhouse and transformer cavern. Dams and hydropower projects in downstream West Bengal were not significantly affected but were kept shut from heavy siltation that resulted from the floodwaters. The state government has set up 26 relief camps in the 4 affected districts. The Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, SSSDMA, said on Thursday, with at least 1,025 people taking shelter in the 8 relief camps in Gangtok district. The flood destroyed 11 bridges in the state, with 8 bridges getting washed away in the Mangan district alone. 2 bridges were destroyed in Namchi and 1 in Gangtok. Water pipelines, sewage lines, and 277 houses have been destroyed in the 4 most affected districts of Mangan, Gangtok, Pakyong, and Namchi. Steps are being taken to avoid such situations in the future. Chapter 4. Flood preceded installation of Early Warning System (EWS). On September 8, almost a month before the flash floods, the Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority (SSDMA) organized a pre-expedition workshop. Scientists with the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation (SDC) handed over 2 monitoring stations to the government to establish the monitoring stations, develop a prototype early warning system, assess the hazards and dangers related to geolofts, and make decisions regarding appropriate mitigating measures. The expedition was a 10-day trip to South Lonak and Shakocho lakes with around 30 experts from Indian and Swiss agencies intended to install the devices, but the EWS systems were not fully installed. We were in discussions with the SDC about how to set up a sustainable monitoring system, given the terrain and past attempts. The plan was to stabilize the system in one lake before installing it in the other, said Vinod Sharma, Vice Chairman of the Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority. But the deluge arrived before the EWS system started functioning. Glaciologist Anil Kulkarni said it was deeply disappointing that efforts to install EWS had not been consistent. In 2015, Kulkarni chaired a committee investigating the possibility of a GLOF at South Lonak Lake. The committee recommended setting up EWS and preparing a map with vulnerable locations that may get inundated due to extreme geolof event to plan evacuation and mitigation efforts. A second suggestion made by the committee was to use engineering techniques to reduce the load of the lake. In 2016, the Sikkim government teamed up with the students' educational and cultural movement of Ladakh, Sekmol, led by scientist and inventor Sonam Wangchuk, to siphon water away from the lake. Reducing the height of the lake by siphoning water away reduces its volume and can act as a mitigative measure because there's less pressure in the event of a breach. Water was drawn from pipes and a sensor to monitor the lake's water levels was installed, but the system did not last. We had only set up a prototype sample, which we proposed to be scaled up to roughly 8 systems. We couldn't do all 8 because it was very difficult physically, Wangchuk told Mongabay India. According to Sharma of the SSDMA, 2 more siphoning efforts were made to lower the height of the lake but did not endure on account of the harsh terrain. Wind velocity is so high, sensors were destabilized, other times the pipes were washed away. It's a difficult task at 18,000 feet. Expeditions like this are also extremely expensive, costing crores of rupees, which is expensive for a state like ours, where funding is a constraint, he said. The National Disaster Management Authority, in a statement on October 4th, said it would expedite the deployment of EWS at at-risk glacial lakes across India in light of the Sikkim disaster. Chapter 6. Dam construction added to hazard. 2 years before it became commercially operational, a 2015 study by the Central Water Commission said that dams along the Teesta, including the 1200 megawatts Teesta 3 HEP, were vulnerable to gale-off events. Activists say aspects of the dam's vulnerability have been known much before, since 2005, and systematically ignored or overlooked by the authority. The affected citizens of Teesta wrote in their recent statement that WAPCOS, the consulting company that conducted the environmental impact assessment of the plant, had acknowledged the risk of gloves on the dam in a meeting in 2005, but that it deliberately or otherwise chose not to assess the risk of GLOFs at all. In the environmental impact assessment, it was parallelly working on specifically for the 1200 megawatts Teesta 3 project. Nor did the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change insist on such a study being done. The ACT had also approached the then National Environmental Appellate Authority about their concerns, but their petition was ultimately dismissed. In the counter affidavits by MoFCC and the company, not a single line was written about the threat of GLOFs we had raised. The appellate authority dismissed our appeal. Not a single line was written about the threat of GLOFs. In the appellate. Scientific warnings, local resentment. South Lonak Lake had not yet come to public attention when the new century began, but it did in 2005 when it featured in a list of 14 potentially dangerous glacial lakes identified in a study by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ECMOD, a think tank based in Kathmandu, Nepal. The area of Teesta River basin is comparatively very small, but the number of lakes and potential GLOF is very high compared to other study regions, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, said the ECMOD report. Another warning came in October 2007 when the union government's own carrying capacity report of the Teesta River basin was published. Commissioned by the Ministry of Environment, the report said that South Lonak Lake's embankment, made of moraine or unconsolidated glacial debris, had evidently breached once in the past and could breach again. The study of recent aerial photographs and satellite images shows a very quick regaining of lake water volume, said the Environment Ministry report. At present, it is refilled again with water and poses danger. Apart from cloudbursts, there are always chances of avalanches from mountain glaciers, which may break the damming material and cause gale-offs, it added. As the dam rose, so did warnings. The draft Sikkim Action Plan on Climate Change, published in March 2011, said that downstream in gale-off-prone areas, there should be monitoring systems prior to, during and after construction of infrastructures and settlements in the downstream area. The plan said it was essential to install early warning systems and associated hardware and undertake remote real-time monitoring with automatic data transmission. South Lonak Lake was growing faster than any other in Sikkim, said a 2012 report, Impacts of Climate Change. Glacial Lake Outburst Floods, published by the Pune-based Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC. Damages were recorded in 4 districts, sweeping away 13 bridges and affecting over 60,000 people in total. Are such events likely in the future? Several studies have over the years warned of the risk from Gulf events from the Himalayas. Both the frequency and severity of such events are going to increase exponentially in the future. The Himalayan ecosystem is the most fragile in the world, and any disruption in the way we are managing these resources will have a problematic outcome for the people of the region. Rising temperatures are leading to a wetter future and contributing to climate change-led extreme events, but it is also disturbing the fragility of the Himalayan ecosystem through hydropower and other dams. GLOF is an outcome of warming of the region, and this has been a major risk for the region. Once it is formed, you never know what triggers its outburst. Sikkim is an example of this, said Anjal Prakash, IPCC author, and with the Bharti Institute of Public Policy, Indian School of Business. While the Teesta River is a source of hydropower generation for several power projects, the risk of GLOF-like events requires greater care in planning and executing dam and other infrastructure projects, which account for the huge amount of water that can potentially gush through the mountains. Early warning systems are implementable, said Dr. Saini, but require a coordinated approach, such as multiple agencies promptly sharing satellite images that are trained towards the Himalayas and a network of sensors to provide adequate warning. Unlike an earthquake that is relatively sudden, Gulf events can be anticipated as we can monitor changes in the size of lakes, but this requires greater coordination. In conclusion, the Teesta flood has been a devastating event, but it has also highlighted the importance of preparedness, resilience, and community solidarity. As we move forward, it's crucial to support the ongoing relief and recovery efforts and to work towards preventing such disasters in the future. We encourage our listeners to support relief efforts in any way they can, whether it's through donations, volunteering, or simply spreading awareness. Every bit helps. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Podcast Name. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll be discussing next topic. Until then, stay safe and take care.